9th, 2022, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, we may care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. And I'm going to start off today by just marking National Nursing Week. National Nursing Week is running from May 9th to 15th, and the theme this year is We Answer the Call for nurses. The pandemic brought to light the courage and commitment that nurses work under every day and showed the important role that nurses play in our community. We're thankful for our nurses for getting us through the pandemic, and hopefully this can be a week to celebrate their accomplishments and their needs going forward. With that, we will get into our agenda. So do we have any amendments tonight? Seeing none. Disclosure of monetary interest. We've got no delegations, so but we do have a motion for the adoption of minutes. Is there anybody that would move 4.1? Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that the minutes of the April 4th, 2022 and April 25th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meetings be received and filed. All those in favor? And that is carried. We'll move in now to CAO Director's Report. CO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 3 reports this evening, and we can kick it off with Director McMahon.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to advise of the change to access to Town Hall, which some of you may be aware of at this point. So due to construction activities related to Beckwith Street Phase 2 reconstruction, as well as Town Hall renovation and Town Park renovation, which will be happening this summer as well, Town Hall main reception access has been temporarily relocated to the main reception access on Church Street. So that, of course, is between Elmsley and Beckwith Street on the side over by the fire entrance. Signage is in place to direct visitors to the Church Street access. The mail drop box has been relocated to the Church Street side as well. Due to construction activities, access to the visitor center will be via the Church Street access as well. And Julia has made provisions for a bit of a setup there in the front lobby reception area for information, and anybody needing visitor center services will be directed over to that side to speak with staff. This service disruption is anticipated to be in effect until the fall of 2020. And that's all I have for this evening.
That's great. Thank you, Director McMahon. Any questions for Paul? Thank you very much. Some inconvenience for some long-term accessibility, so that's great.
So next up, we have Ms. Crowder from Economic Development and Tourism.
Thank you, through you. I have a few updates today. I'll start with the Heritage House Museum. So the Smith Falls Heritage House Museum will open for the season this Saturday, May 14th. The museum hours for the summer months will be Wednesday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sundays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Otherwise, appointments can be booked with staff directly. Opening exhibits for the month of May will look back at Smith Falls Cinema in the history of Beckwith Street in light of the current renovations. Period rooms will highlight the Ward and Gould families this season, along with a fun tour challenge for visitors to spot historical inaccuracies within those periods. Special events will also be in the works for June, including notable women of Smith Falls and a history of Smith Falls presented by the grade 7 and 8 classes from Lombardy Public School. Megan has been hired as through the Tourism Relief Fund to coordinate marketing efforts for the museum and help with rebranding its exhibits and programs over the next 12 months. There's a few other students as well who started on Monday, so welcome to Heritage Museum. I know a few of our students are returning, so it's great to have them back. The museum's strategic plan survey received 80 respondents, and the data is currently being reviewed and analyzed and will be entered into the formal plan to help guide the museum over the next 5 to 10 years. We anticipate the strategic plan will be coming forward for council review and for some additional public consultation in the next coming months. The museum also raised $4,000 in sponsorship for this year's Movie Under the Stars, and Movie Under the Stars will be at Centennial Park on Thursday evenings in July. I also wanted to advise council and community that staff have entered into a partnership MOU with the Smith Falls and District Arts and Culture Council to start the development of the Public Arts Master Plan, which I know is an exciting project that everyone is looking forward to. So this plan will help guide local art installations, events, animation in a way to further grow and support local arts in our community. We had a job fair last Monday, May 2nd. Due to the weather, or we thought it was going to be a rainy day, we had a last minute venue change to Settlers Ridge. So thank you to Settlers Ridge for letting us use their venue. It provided a great venue and it was well attended. We had about 19 employers and approximately 100 job seekers attend the event. To date, there have been 19 positions filled as a result of the job fair and another 9 interviews still to be conducted. We had positive feedback all the way around, and staff are working with partners looking for opportunities for another job fair in the fall. Those are my updates.
It's great, lots going on. Is there any questions for Ms. Crowder? All right, well, thank you for everything that's come together, and looking forward to all the fun stuff coming up at the Heritage House Museum. CIO Morris.
So our third and final verbal report will be with Deputy Clerk Nadine Bennett.
Thank you. I'm just actually here to announce that the Accessibility Committee is seeking another member. We had one member resign, and so we are seeking another member. And just if anyone's interested, they can contact the clerk's office, or there are documents on the town website under the government tab and the committees of council. Just a quick overview, the Accessibility Committee provides advice to council on identifying and eliminating barriers to people with disabilities in municipal programs, services, initiatives, and facilities. And this committee has been quite active meeting, and they're actually working on a work plan. So it's a great time to join if anyone is interested. So please reach out to the clerk's office if you are interested, and we will help you find the documents so that we can submit them. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Deputy Clerk Bennett. CIO Morris.
That is our final verbal report for this evening. Thank you.
Great. So that brings us into correspondence item 6.1. We received a letter from the Solicitor General that congratulates the town, Chief Cheeseborough, with successfully completing our community emergency management obligations for 2021. Sounds like it was very successful, and we give our congratulations to the chief. Are there any questions or comments on that before we move on? Seeing none, we keep moving into our priority issues now. So the first is Municipal Heritage Committee Property of Interest, 11 Market Street report with Senior Planner Grenke.
Good evening, Council. Staff are, thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are pleased to bring forward a recommendation from the Municipal Heritage Committee regarding the listing of the property described as 11 Market Street South on the town's Register of Properties of Interest. As noted in the staff report, the Municipal Register of Properties of Cultural Value or Interest is a record of all properties within the town that have been identified by council as having significant cultural, heritage, or historical significance within the community, and includes properties designated under the Heritage Act, which imparts certain statutory provisions pertaining to the alteration of heritage defining features, and also includes non-designated properties of interest. And that's what's being recommended by the Heritage Committee. The effect of adding a property of interest is that it allows for the delay of a review of a proposed demolition permit for a period of up to 60 days. And that timeline offers a pause on a potential demolition and allows for a period of discussions between the town and the owner, which can include, but doesn't have to include, an action to designate a property under the Act. Members of the Heritage Committee have been working hard to identify properties within the town that are worthy of recognition as properties of interest. I think it was in 2019, Tony Humphrey from the MHC had presented a list of about 8 residential and non-residential properties that have been added as properties of interest, and several more are going to be presented in the coming weeks by Mr. Humphrey. However, at this time, we are bringing forward one property at 11 Market Street for consideration as a property of interest. This a stone block constructed in the mid-19th century was originally the former Albion Hotel, and has and currently owned by Hydro One. If supported by committee, the next step would be for council to formally adopt a resolution adding the property as a property of interest, and then notice would be given to the property owner in advance of with 30 days to respond. We do note that staff have outreached all potential properties of interest within the last number of months, and we've not received feedback. So I'll pause there, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Carl. It's exciting to have this come to council tonight. Any questions, comments, Councillor Dwyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to Carl, can you clarify that last point you made there? You have already previously contacted this property owner about the potential of including it in the properties of interest list. Is that correct?
That is correct. A notice has been sent to the address that we have on file for through the assessment office. That being said, Hydro One I can't guarantee that that notice would have been filtered within that organization, but we did reach out to Hydro, as well as any other owners of the potential properties of interest that will be brought forward.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm hugely supportive of this. I know the MHC has been working on getting properties of interest added to a register for many, many years. And it's so fantastic to see that it's finally happening. I know that this property, as well as several others on Chambers Street, have great historic interest because they are some of the oldest stone buildings constructed in the town. So I'm hugely supportive, and I hope that this is just the very initial first step in designating this property. I think there's certainly reasonable grounds to do so. And I look forward to seeing that come forward, hopefully before the election.
Thanks, Councillor Dwyer. Next up, we have Councillor Alfred, then Mayor Penko.
No, I certainly support staff's recommendation, but I did, Carl, is there a list, just out of curiosity, the 19 that have currently been identified? Is there a list somewhere online, or just out of curiosity if people wanted to know?
Certainly.
Carl?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have a list of the properties that are listed, and we can certainly provide those to anybody who's interested. We are undergoing a little bit of a work in progress right now on our web presence, including on the planning section of the website. So I can't guarantee it's in an easily accessible location now, but I'm very, very pleased to provide that list to anybody who's interested.
Thank you.
Great. Mayor Penko?
Yes, thank you. I think we need even a stronger discussion here on what we're hoping to achieve through this process. And I guess, and I think it's important the public understand that this building is at risk, and that we have heard from Hydro One as early as last fall about their intention to dispose of the property initially, and the possibility of simply demolishing it. And I know there's a string of emails. I guess we're all familiar. There's a string of emails going between Carl, our planner, and representatives of Hydro, and this building has been vacant for an awful long time, as we're all aware, but it has incredible historic and heritage significance to the town. And while designating this property as a property of interest does give us an opportunity to have a longer dialogue with Hydro One, with the hope or the intent to ensure that this building not be demolished, I think it's important that we make sure the public is aware that this building is at risk. And even though it has not been serving a large purpose to the community in recent years, actually for decades, it's still a building of incredible significance, as has been outlined. And of course, as recently as last week or the week before, where the intent after a dialogue with the town is that Hydro does intend to follow through and dispose of this property with the intention of preserving this substation potentially for future expansion. So it's deeply concerning because it would, I think has been described, it would leave it like it's a beautiful building. It would leave a permanent scar on that site, and having a vacant lot where this building now stands serves no purpose to the town. It leaves a gap on a very important corner. It would essentially, when finished, I assume, would not be a park, would not be a land for future development. It would simply sit there as a potential site for expansion of the substation at some point in time. And I think we need to ensure that the public is aware of this, and then we do all we can to ensure that this demolition does not occur. I did send a letter today to the Chief of Staff, the Minister of Energy, Todd Smith, asking that he get to the Chief of Staff, asking that he get involved, potentially provide some information on some of the leadership positions within Hydro One that we can reach out to, because I think it'd be a tragedy. This is something that stood in our town for probably over 150 years. We're not sure exactly the date that it was constructed, but it has significant significance to the town. And I think we need a collective effort and higher awareness that what is at risk here.
Thanks, Mayor Franco. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so I think that this, you know, to designate as property of interest is a first step. It's not the last step. And I'm glad to hear that we have written to the government, and I look forward to further, you know, advocacy. I think that everyone around this table would agree that that building should stay. And I know that we've been working on it for some time. And, you know, Hydro One is sort of arm's length from the government. However, I think we have some pull as we are a united front to keep this building. So I wholeheartedly support this step and any other steps we can take to keep it where it is. I mean, it used to be the Smith Falls Hydro building. And I know that there's been efforts for years and years and years to acquire it. And so whatever we can do, I think we need to do, and I think we will do. And I hopefully, I pray that we'll have some advocacy at Queen's Park in the very near future to help us out with that.
Thanks, Councillor Brennan. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with my colleagues more. This is a gem of a building, one of the few buildings of its age, and it's in right now good condition. But if it's demolished, it would just be the saddest thing. Hopefully, all of what we're doing will protect that and keep it from. I just had a question, Carl, in regards to process. It seems to me that we're in agreement that we're going to have it on the property of interest list. Can we speed the program of the next step up to have this formally identified?
Carl.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, if council supports the MHC and staff recommendation to list the property, the implementing resolution can also include a recommendation that staff and the Municipal Heritage Committee further investigate this property for a potential designation. And part of the mandate of the Municipal Heritage Committee is to make recommendations to council regarding the designation of properties under the Ontario Heritage Act, and certainly with council's direction, we can work with the Heritage Committee on that research, and the committee can develop a recommendation and bring that back to council, or bring that back to committee of the whole for recommendation as well.
That's great. Thanks, Carl. Councillor Allen, did you have anything else? Okay. So seeing no other hands up, I'll weigh in. I definitely agree with all my colleagues. It's great to hear that everybody's enthusiastic to save this site. I fully support Carl's expanded recommendation of not only putting it on the properties of interest, but committee giving staff the mandate to go ahead and start with the designation process. I'd like to take a straw vote just to make sure. I'm seeing nodding heads, but do we have a majority for that? Looks like it. That's great. So, and then just to note before we move on, the description that we've got in tonight's report shows the cultural context, but as one of the oldest stone buildings in town, it's also got an architectural context that we still need to develop more of. So it's a great building downtown, and I'm sure we'll be able to save it. Is there anything else, Carl, we can, or does that give you everything you need going forward?
Yes, I think my direction is clear, and I thank you for that. And as you noted, I think right now for the listing on the property of interest, the requirements to include that listing are fairly basic, and there is a lot of work. There is some research been done on this property, and a significant array of built and associated value with this property in our community and along Chambers Street that can be fleshed out and certainly explored of meeting the criteria for designation under the Ontario Heritage Act, and staff look forward to working with the MHC on those steps.
That's great. Thanks, Carl. We have Councillor Alfred, then Mayor Panko.
Just as I am not as familiar as some of my colleagues, so we don't currently have any properties actually designated. Is that correct? No, we have some designated. Okay, so this is not the first time we've gone through this process, and this one is somewhat threatened, and so there is some urgency to it. Are there others that we should be moving forward with to designate as well?
Yeah, Carl, did you want to respond to that, or?
Yes, I think through you, Mr. Chair, I think there is certainly, I'm not aware of any. I think certainly this is one that has risen up the urgency list in the last little while. The Municipal Heritage Committee will be bringing forward 2 other properties within the coming weeks for potential designation, and the hope is, I know, to accommodate a number of others in addition to the properties of interest that are being proposed. So I know that is something that is being worked on with the committee, and certainly I'll welcome Councillor McGuire or Allen, who are working with who are the members of the Municipal Heritage Committee as well.
Yeah, there's more urgency to this one, but there are others in the pipe too. Okay, thank you.
I think the Heritage Conservation District that's coming this year, we've got a huge concentration of these buildings in the downtown core and along the canal. So hopefully that'll be a big step forward, I think, for these kind of things. But in the meantime, I think this will be great. Mayor Panko.
Thank you. So, I mean, it's great to have the support tonight and identifies a property of interest, but that itself, if an application was made for a demolition permit, would simply provide some pause and some delay and hopefully some sober second thought. And Carl, can you clarify? I don't understand completely, but even if it's designated, there is still an opportunity for Hydro One to still seek demolition. Is that correct?
Carl?
So this, through you, Mr. Chair, this is the first opportunity in my experience here where we're looking at the designation of a potential designation of a property that is truly at risk. So certainly in the event we were to be getting a demolition permit, or even if potentially we were to give notice for a designation that were appealed or contested by the property owner, then we would seek legal advice to ensure that the municipalities and council's interests are protected within the confines of the act. So that is certainly something we would explore.
Thank you. So I think in tandem, I think we need to make every effort we can to ensure that this doesn't happen. And I'm hoping that there are other heritage interest groups and experts, perhaps across the province, that have experience in dealing with situations like this. Of course, we're dealing with a large organization. We recognize that there may be people within the organization that do have some appreciation for heritage and perhaps some positions of leadership. So we have to be hopeful that the direction that we've seen so far is really one wing, which is not considering the potential impact in the community and the value of this property, and that by moving up, I guess, the chain, we can hopefully halt this. But I think we need to make sure that we do all we possibly can, because we could be receiving an application for demolition at any point in time, and we need to be prepared.
Thanks, Mayor Panko. I agree. The Architectural Conservancy of Ontario might be a good group like that. Councillor Dwyer, then Councillor Brennan.
Sorry, pardon me. Yeah, I think reaching out to additional resources would be helpful. I mean, the National Trust produces a list every year of the top 10 lost structures in Canada. You know, this is one, and I hate to say it, but a lot of them are often owned by Crown agencies. So we're not alone in this. You know, I'm hoping that perhaps, you know, some proactive action by the council here can help further that. And maybe it needs to be, you know, in conjunction with the work that Mayor Panko is doing to further this with the Minister of Culture, Tourism and Sport and Hydro One. But maybe there's need for us to pass some sort of resolution that gets forwarded out to all municipalities in Ontario, urging Crown agencies, particularly Hydro One, to recognize the importance that their properties play within municipal settings. Just a thought.
Great. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, thanks. Just for clarity and for people that are watching that know, that are interested in this building, and I'm sure there's many, they're applying for a demolition permit. And in the past number of years, there's been rumors and rumblings about a couple other properties. I'll say Hershey is one of them, and that was contemplated. I'll say the Settlers Ridge Center, that was contemplated by RioCan, and now we're hearing about the possibility of a demolition permit application for this particular property. Now, I would say application. So my question is this, and people would be interested to know, they're applying for a demolition permit. Is it incumbent on the town to grant a demolition permit?
Senior Planner Granke.
Yes, so if a demolition permit is applied for, and to the best of my knowledge, it has not been applied for in this instance, but if a demolition permit has been applied for, then we would be obligated to issue it so long as all applicable law has been met. And applicable law includes protections set forward under the Ontario Heritage Act. So if there are no protections set forward under the Ontario Heritage Act and all other applicable law were met, then our chief building official would be obligated to issue the demolition permit within the statutory timelines.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Carol.
Through the chair. I'm sort of thinking like, well, why is there an application if they can just do it if they want? So
Yeah,
just
I
thinking
agree.
out
I
loud.
don't think demolitions are ever in the best interest of the community, but Councillor Dwyer.
Yeah, I mean, if the municipality receives a demo permit, provided it meets applicable law, then it has to be issued, right? You can't withhold a demo permit. The act just doesn't contemplate that. Unless, of course, it's designated, in which case there's grounds to withhold. But like, if Hydro One still has a requirement to comply with the Ontario Building Code, so if they walked in and filed the permit and met the requirements of applicable law, then the municipality has to, the chief building official has to issue that permit.
Guess the building permit is to make sure the demolition happens safely. It's not to debate the merits of the purpose or the existence of the structure. So I'm hearing strong consensus for the recommendation in the staff report. I'm hearing that we want to pursue the process of designating this property, is starting that process. And I'm also hearing that we want to give Mayor Panko and staff our full support to pursue any kind of lobbying and conversations that would lead to helping preserve this building going forward. Is that fair? And maybe a resolution will come out of that. Thumbs up. Okay, that's great. Thank you, everybody. Great discussion and strong consensus. So that's awesome. 8.2 is proposed land sale on open Burke Street road allowance report, also with Senior Planner Grenke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The town of Smith Falls has received a request to close an unopened portion of the Burke Street road allowance situated at the southeast corner of Burke Street's intersection with Jones Street. According to the information we have available, the road allowance is roughly 20 meters in width and a total lot area of just under half an acre in size. The first step in the process of closing and conveying a portion of town-owned lands is to formally declare these lands surplus to municipal needs. Accordingly, staff are recommending that council adopts a resolution to declare the subject lands identified in the report as surplus to municipal needs, and that staff be directed to proceed with the land sale process, including notice in accordance with the town's bylaw to regulate the sale of municipally owned property. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions on this report? Not seeing any. We've got thumbs up. Great. So we'll go ahead with your recommendation there, Carl. Thank you very much. So next up, we've got 8.3 catch basin cleaning program with Director McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so this is a pretty straightforward report this evening. Public Works staff are looking to exercise the provision of an extension from a contract we had with Aquadrain Services, Inc. Back in 2021 for the same maintenance work, our catch basin cleaning program. So in the contract, there are provisions should the town wish to exercise, we would contact the contractor, being Aquadrain Services Inc. in this case, to solicit an interest for an extension from their part. So we did that back on April 25th, 2022, and they did respond to say they were interested in an extension based on the CPI adjustment provision in the original tender documents. So that CPI adjustment for 2021 for the calendar year was to the tune of 4.22%. So that translates into an increase from last year's contract in the amount of $1,167.44. Still keeps us well within the annual operating budget that we have for that line item of $30,000. And I will say that staff were pleased with Aquadrain's performance last year. So in my opinion as being director, my recommendation would be to afford the extension and get Aquadrain back this year to do the same work. Happy to take any questions through the chair.
Great, thank you, Paul. Seeing thumbs up, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm supportive of the staff recommendation. Director McMahon, it's an odd question. The debris that is collected, do you know how much comes out? And is it tracked or by weight, or how is that? And does it go up or down? So my real question is, do we have to do this annually, or can you skip a year? Is my question. How much is coming out?
Yeah, so through the chair, I don't know exactly, Mr. McKenna, how much material comes out, but I'm sure the weigh tickets, it would be considered waste and have to be disposed of accordingly. But that said, my recommendation would be to not skip any one calendar year. Most of the debris that's associated with this work is as a result of winter control operations, i.e. mix that we use on the roadway for abrasives and for traction, as well as anything else that comes down the gutter line from storm events and whatnot, makes their way in the catch basin. So It's good maintenance practice. It's something that most municipalities do. And we know that the catch basins have what they call a sump in the bottom of the structure. So you've got a pipe up a little bit higher, and then you've got this distance below that collects all that sediment and debris and everything in the bottom. So in heavy rain events, all of that sediment and debris in the bottom of the catch basin can get agitated, and then it gets washed out down our storm pipes, and then we end up having to clean our storm sewers. So it's best to keep those those catch basins clean, so it doesn't make its way into the storm system, because it does sand and grit and everything is an abrasive, and it can have an effect on our pipes over a long period of time. So my recommendation would be to continue on this annual program.
That's good enough for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul, I understand when we do routine maintenance clean out for stormwater management ponds, the material that's collected has to be treated as hazardous waste and disposed of accordingly. Is the same true for catch basin clean out? And if so, does the scope of the contract include for the tipping fees associated for disposal of hazardous waste, or would that be incidental and on top of the contract?
Yeah, it would be considered contaminated material, albeit it can be used for, it can be screened and used back again for winter control operations. As odd as that sounds, it can be used as sand material. So it does get deposited at the yard, and we do reuse it. We screen it. We'll put it back into our sand mix. So it doesn't necessarily have to go to a licensed landfill. And there are no provisions in the contract for those tipping fees. However, it would be an extra if we ran into something that, you know, for some reason the contractor and staff that were out monitoring this program, if they felt that there was something coming out of a catch basin that needed to be disposed of properly, we would definitely do our due diligence and get rid of it properly. Yeah.
It's great. Really interesting to hear that it can be recycled year after year like that. I'm not seeing any other hands up. The other thing too is that not only does it damage our pipes, but it's incredibly disruptive to the ecology of the river. So if we can keep it from getting that far down the system, fully supportive of doing it every year. Great. So I think you've got your direction, Director McMunn. Thank you. Next up, we've got sewage systems management agreement with the RVCA with Chief Cheeseborough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My report tonight is to seek Council's authorization for the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement with the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. A bit of the background is the health unit notified municipalities early December. They would no longer be providing that service, which is due to end September 30th or 31st, the 30th, I should say, of this year. We were provided with a number of options. One of them, maintaining that sewage management system in-house, which would require staff to be certified under Part 8. The second option was to partner with some neighboring municipalities to have it done. And the third option was to enter into an agreement with the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority to provide that service. In reviewing all three, my recommendation tonight is that we enter into the agreement with the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. They have the staff that are trained and able to do that. We do have a very limited number of septic systems, sewage systems within the municipality, and it would be in our best interest to have them provide that level of service.
Thanks, Chief Cheeseborough. Any questions, Councillor McKenna?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm supportive of the recommendation, Chief, and thanks for bringing it forward. I guess my question is on those 10, do we know what I'm on the Public Health Unit Board, and they will keep track, I think, they're going to archive all the permits for 30 or 40 years because they inspected those likely initially. I guess my question is, Rideau Lakes had a program last year, in the last couple of years, where they would do mandatory inspections on sewage beds, and we've got 10 in our municipality. Do we know the shape of those or the quality of those before we hand them over to another oversight body?
Through the chair, no, we're not aware of the age or the current condition of those systems. I would fully anticipate that the health unit would have that documentation in hand that they will be providing to the RVCA or to the municipalities who choose to do it in-house. What I can say is that they will be doing, if council approves that tonight, they will be doing public education as to the transfer and the condition and some of the parameters surrounding that transfer from the health unit out to the general public, and they'll be promoting that as well. They'll be receiving all the information requests directly through the RVCA. But I don't want to, it's not good to assume, but I would anticipate that information would go along with the transfer to the RVCA.
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you, Chief. I assume that as well. I just want to anticipate any, in these kind of, it's been a long, like 30, 40 years that the health unit's been doing it. In these transitions to a different governing body, I just want to make sure that the town is not opening itself to any unforeseen liability regarding the state of those. And if they've been licensed and if they've been maintained properly, I just want to make sure that I'm trying to think of any risk to the municipality, and I can't see any, and I appreciate your insight into it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. CEO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Councillor McKenna raises a good point. We don't have a mandatory septic reinspection program, and likely owing to the very small number, but once we get access to the records, I think it would be duly diligent on our behalf to review them with the RVCA, and if there is reason to believe that perhaps some are old and potentially not functioning properly, we could bring forward a recommendation to consider a mandatory reinspection program. But that would be a policy decision. But at this point, I would suggest that staff have a look at it, and if we have reason to believe it would be warranted, we'll bring that forward at a future meeting.
Thanks, CEO Morris. No, great report, Chief. It's great to see that even when the province is making it harder than ever for conservation authorities to operate, there's lots of jobs that they can do efficiently and effectively. I know the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority is a partner with the Ontario Rural Wastewater Centre, and they've got a really cool demonstration facility at the Baxter Conservation Area near Cars, where they've got systems set up and they do training courses there. So we're definitely going to be getting the best that Eastern Ontario has to offer for this service. Any final questions, comments before we move on? Great. You've got your direction.
Thank you.
So next up, we've got our annual business report, the 2021 year-end report with Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. The report before you is informational. It's to provide you with the first annual business information and connections program report to provide local business insights from 2021. As noted in the report, the town has in the past participated in business retention and expansion, or BRNE, data collection surveys regionally, and we often get data through census and other programs and projects. But we've never entered into a program where we're consistently engaging with our business community on an annual basis to ask them questions and to obtain feedback and vital information about their operations and their sense of community and what's happening, their challenges and successes. So that's why it's really important that we started this program. The report itself is the first one, and so it really just aims to gather some baseline data and connect with the community and to get them used to us reaching out on an annual basis to talk to them and have conversations. The program collects vital data year over year to track community trends. It validates anecdotal information from our business community. We often hear, businesses expressing challenges and concerns, but this is a way to gather data from a broad range of sectors and a broad number of businesses to really validate that information. It offers indicators to gauge local growth and sustainability. So a good example is this year, which obviously isn't in this report, but we have identified 4 businesses who have gone through succession planning, which means, we're not losing businesses, we're not losing jobs in our community. So those are things that we really want to track and be able to identify. Build and track key performance outcomes for business support programs and services. So asking businesses, how are we doing? How's the small business center, providing services, and is the level of service there? And are there other programs and services that we could provide to better support our business community? Identify when there's a need for new support and services, and provide insights to guide and inform economic development priorities and departmental work plans. So in previous municipalities, this really is a way for our department to work plan every year and to allocate resources to support our business community. Some of the highlights I touched on within the report as well is, we were able to contact and directly engage with 48 businesses, which is 28% of the business community. We anticipate as we continue to do this program, we'll receive more and more participation, which will give us a better understanding and insight into the business community. The more surveys you have, the better the data is. 19 new businesses opened in 2021, which is really positive because we were still kind of within COVID, and that is almost double the amount we've seen in the last 2 years. So our community continues to grow. It's continuing to be prosperous, and people are investing in the town of Smith Falls. 59 either increased or maintained revenue levels. Again, that's really important data coming through COVID. And the majority of our jobs are full-time permanent positions, considering tourism is one of our biggest sectors and economic drivers within the community. Knowing that a lot of our jobs are full-time, that means that people are working year-round and it's not seasonally based. So sustainability, the sustainability of that is really good. And I should just preface that, the data contained in this report is based on the survey responses received. It's not obviously every single business because we were only able to engage with 48 businesses. So the numbers are based on the people that we talked to and the data that we received through those calls and emails and conversations.
Thank you, Julia. Questions, comments on the report? Mayor Panko?
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Great report, and it's fascinating to look at the details that you've been able to draw out. A couple of questions and points. One, I guess, the 44 businesses who are planning to hire in the next 12 months is really encouraging, and that's out of that survey number. So over half are indicating they plan to hire in the next 12 months, and if that's indicative of most of our businesses in town. We have a lot of businesses that will be looking to hire in the next 12 months, and we're at labor shortages. I guess what's encouraging. It's also, I guess, worrisome about the challenge of attracting workforce and fulfilling these jobs in the coming years. Just one, and I noticed almost half the businesses, I think it's 47%, are either startups at 19% or businesses have been there for 3 to 9 years at 28%. Is that those numbers fairly normal, or especially coming through a pandemic? It seems like a lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs have ventured out on a limb and started at a difficult time. Is that fairly consistent with most what we experience at any given time, that there would be that many businesses that are relatively new?
COVID has really changed the business landscape, and we did see a number of people, especially women in service industries and retail and healthcare, actually shift. Having to stay at home with children, they re-looked at what they were able to do. They started some of their own businesses. So we actually did see a number of new businesses, within our region, within Ontario, within Canada, shift in that direction. So for the most part, and talking to some of my colleagues, they're also seeing those trends as well in other communities as people shift and are able to, work from home and have more of a work-life balance.
Thank you.
Mayor Panko, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Ms. Crowder. I think this is an excellent first survey. To get 28% response rate is excellent. for any survey, let alone a first time. So I'm pleased with that, and the data will be really useful. I had a couple of questions. On the, I guess the fourth slide in there, are opportunities to help. There's 4 or 5 opportunities to help. Are they your suggestions, or did they come from the survey? Here's how you could help us.
So those are, suggestions that staff put in based on the responses from the survey. We heard, a lot of the businesses saying we're not getting the information, and some of that will be facilitated through our new website. And we're looking at doing an economic development e-newsletter that's going directly to businesses, and working with our, DBA and our chamber and some of our other organizations to help better disseminate more information on a regular basis as well.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Chair, one more. Survey, developing a survey is a complicated thing. You don't want to make them so many questions that business will say, I don't have time to fill it out. But on the other hand, you can oversimplify. How do you know what questions to ask? Do you have a survey work group, or how do you know what to ask in your survey?
So I worked in 2 other municipalities, and we develop surveys as part of those municipalities as well. So, part of it comes from experience, part of it is just baseline data and annual information that you want to gather as an economic developer to, assess your community and things, our workforce and revenues and business investment into their businesses. But some things are local, based on local information that you're getting or hearing and talking to local businesses. So for the most part, the survey will stay the same. We may adjust questions as we progress and as things change, but we want to be able to look at trends over the year and be able to compare data year over year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. It's a great report, and my takeaway from it is this: if I was in a neighboring community, Ottawa or someplace, looking at Smith Falls, and had this resource to see how things are going, I'd be encouraged. So I think that's probably the takeaway that we want. And, we've done our homework. We know how to help you, and things are looking positive, and why not come and open a business here? So good job.
Councillor Alfred.
Yeah, it was a nice, compact, information-filled report, and thank you for that, Julia. There was some takeaways for this for me, but the one thing that struck me in light of the 2 years of the pandemic is that 60% of our businesses were able to both maintain or grow their profits. And you just need to kind of sit in that for a minute, given the resilience and the determination of our business community, with the support of our local people who, they may have otherwise in previous years looked to go somewhere else. The town, I'm always pleasantly surprised as to how the town will support when there is a need. And I think our town, the residents of our town, did a fabulous job during the pandemic to support our local business. And I think our local business owners did an absolutely awesome job of reinventing, pivoting, changing. They were resilient, and I'd like to celebrate that, just that one nugget that we made it through. It's not all gone. COVID's not all gone, but to see 19 new businesses open is pretty staggering, as speaks to the faith that people and business people and our residents have in Smith Falls. So thanks, Julia.
Thanks, Councillor Alfred. I was really impressed by this. It blew me away. I think, especially for the first year, to get 84 responses was incredible. I hope that other businesses see this now and want to remember to fill it out next year because of how well it's been done. The numbers are presented in a way that's easy to understand. There's a ton of data presented here, and it's visually appealing, and you can get right into it. And I think as a counselor, often we hear when things don't go well, and that's when people pick up the phone. But to see that 90% of businesses that filled out the survey are happy or very happy to be doing business in Smith Falls, I think that was really encouraging to see. So that I think this is excellent. If there was one thing I'd love to see in a future edition would be the percentage of commercial space that's vacant or occupied year over year, so we can kind of see how that trends and how our needs change. But yeah, huge kudos. Thanks a lot, Julia. Any last questions, comments before we? Great, so we're cruising right along here. Back to Chief Cheeseborough for the appointment of Building Inspector Report 22-69.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As indicated, my report tonight deals with the appointment of a building inspector for the town of Smith Falls. Under section 3.2 of the Ontario Building Code Act provides that council of the municipality shall appoint a chief building official and such inspectors as are necessary for the enforcement of the act in the areas in which the municipality has jurisdiction. Last year, we were successful going through the process of recruitment and the interview process, and Jonathan Prue was hired as a building inspector. For Jonathan's first 6 months under his employment agreement, Jonathan was required to complete a number of courses, which he has successfully done, and he's attained the certificates necessary as a building inspector. The position was posted, it wasn't posted, but was listed during the interview process as a shared agreement with Merrickville Wolford. We have been working closely with them and have adjusted the agreement to date, which has been working out very well. They're very satisfied with Jonathan's performance, as we are. So my recommendation tonight is the council of the Corporation Town of Smith Falls bring forward a bylaw to appoint Jonathan Prue as our building inspector as required under the act.
That's great. Thank you, Chief. I'm seeing thumbs up across the board. So that's great. Much needed assistance. Deputy Clerk Bennett, is there something else we've got? Okay. Sorry, I forgot something on the agenda here. So with that, I think next up is adjournment. Any movers? Councillor Alfred, that the committee adjourn. It's seconded by Councillor Allen, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 5:57 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you at council next week.